In the 3 decades after World War II, a period that I call the Great Prosperity, the economy boomed, but not only did the economy boom, but you had very low inequality. We made education a national priority, particularly higher education. By 1940, only 5% of adult Americans had a 4-year college degree, but that percentage began to explode. The GI Bill paid college costs for those who returned from war, and the subsequent expansion of public universities made higher education affordable to many. By the late 50s, we had the best educated workforce of any country in the world. We also had labor unions. By the mid-1950s, more than a third of all workers belonged to a union. This gave average workers bargaining leverage to get a larger share of the growing pie. We created the largest middle class the world had ever seen. And that middle class was part of a virtuous cycle. The wider the prosperity, the more people were included in that prosperity, the more that prosperity generated more prosperity. Hello. Okay. Now, they're going to be calling in momentarily.
From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
America is already making it harder for young people of modest means to attend college. 41 states are cutting spending for public higher education, and tuition and fees are rising as a result. One of the things we've learned about inequality is that it's clearly linked to education, including higher education. More than anything else, that's what lifted people out of poverty and into the middle class during the Great Prosperity. But starting in the late 1970s, our college graduation rates began to flatten out. Countries that kept focusing on higher education were able to deal with globalization better by creating a highly skilled workforce. Look at South Korea, look at the Netherlands, look at Germany. They've invested substantially in education, in skill building of all of their workers. Even though their wages are high, it's worth it to make stuff that goes into the iPhone from Germany because it is so well made, it is so precise. Basically, every other industrialized country, Japan, Germany, France, they are investing per capita much more. Public investment in all of the areas, roads, bridges, public education. That's what we're not doing. That's what we have to be doing.
We're almost out of time.
Start this economy. The economy right now.
Not with new taxes.
For years, I have been writing about the importance of investing in people, in our workforce, so that our people could compete in this new global economy. And then in 1992, I thought I finally might be able to do something about it.
Today, I proudly announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
Bill Clinton told me he had read all my books. They must have influenced him because it formed the backbone of his 1992 campaign about putting people first.
If you put people first, if you do what works, what we know works in the global economy, you'll do what the Germans do, you'll do what the Japanese do, you'll put your people first, you'll expand the middle class.
I mean, here was, somebody I'd known from the age of 22, and he called me one day and said, "Look, Bob, what I really want you to do is come down to Washington right now. I need you to run the economic transition team." I didn't even know what an economic transition team was. You can't imagine the headiness, the excitement. I mean, the chance to actually take these ideas, put them into practice.
I named my economic plan Putting People First, to highlight my belief that our nation can only become a high-wage, high-growth economy if we make a commitment to invest in the American people to make the American economy prosper. That is why I am naming today one of my most trusted advisors and closest friends to the position of Secretary of Labor.
Well, modesty aside, I've assumed for months that I was on Bill Clinton's short lists.
You can step up on that. There is a step.
Oh, there is a step here. It was a dream job for somebody like me who had worried about and fretted about and studied and taught about and wrote about what was happening to the American workforce for years. That long decline in median wages, the wage of that person smack in the middle of the wage scale, that decline started in 1978. Those wages began to decline in terms of the real purchasing power of the dollar. You know, on the one side, it was pretty clear that wages were flat for most people. The flip side was that some people in this country were doing extraordinarily well. You see, the same new technologies that brought globalization and automation bestowed ever larger rewards on people who had the right education and connections to take advantage of globalization. Some people say to me, but wait a minute, you've got technologies today that you didn't have in 1980. You know, we didn't have flat-screen televisions, we didn't have low-cost air travel, we didn't have Skype, we didn't have the internet. So who are the winners and losers from this great shift? Consumers certainly are winning. I mean, you guys, as consumers, you are doing very well. You get wonderful products. Almost everything you're buying is getting cheaper, and the investors are doing well. Here is a chart showing the rise and fall of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. You can see something here. There is sort of a pattern. Woo! You see, something happened, and I think it happened starting right in these years. You see, these were the years I was Labor Secretary. And investors got very excited. I mean, we all saw the stock market going like this. I mean, what in the world was going on? How could that be possible? Were companies suddenly that much more profitable? One of the big reasons corporations were showing higher profits is they were keeping pay down. At the same time, corporate CEOs were starting to pay themselves large multiples of what the average worker was earning.
When we, in the fourth quarter of last year, along with a number of other companies, had to consider workforce reductions, it was a difficult time. You knew that you were impacting people who would have a difficult time, many of them, in finding new jobs, but you had to do it for the organization to, in that day, look to survive.
This chart shows you the compensation of the highest paid executives in 2010. These executives are being paid a lot of money. Executive pay keeps going up. Here's the ratio of average CEO compensation to the average worker's pay. Suddenly, this ratio goes kablooey. Bill Clinton in 1992, one of his campaign planks was that no company should be able to deduct the cost of executive compensation in excess of $1 million.
Many big corporate executives raised their own salaries even when their companies were losing money and their workers were being put into the unemployment lines. I expect the jet setters and the feather bedders of corporate America to know that if you sell your companies and your workers and your country down the river, you'll be called on the carpet. That's what the president's bully pulpit is for.
When it came to actually implementing it, the Treasury Department decided that as long as CEO pay was linked to company performance, you could deduct pay over $1 million. Well, that was the signal to a lot of executives and to their boards of directors to make more and more of executive pay into stock options. That's where the whole stock option thing came from. It was a kind of a perversion of Bill Clinton's promise in the 1992 election. Another result of all of this is that you get a third group of people who are doing remarkably well. And they're the people who always do well, particularly in times of high inequality, the financiers. Between 1997 and 2007, finance was the fastest growing part of the American economy. In 2009, during the depths of the recession, the 7 highest paid hedge fund managers were taking in more than $1 billion each. Remember that government sets the rules by which the market functions. We deregulated Wall Street, allowing Wall Street to engage in more and more excessive behavior. These are the financial sector wages relative to everyone else's. Does this graph look familiar? I mean, this is our bridge graph, our old inequality graph. It's the same pattern. And meanwhile, you've got many working people succumbing to this huge lie that government is bad, that the market is good, that everything government does works against you, and everything the market does helps you.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this food that's been placed before us. We ask you to bless it, bless the hands prepared it, bless it, it'll strengthen our bodies. We ask a special blessing this day, Lord, for those that have no food. Bless them with comfort and hope.
Amen. I am registered as a Republican. It probably has to do with our religion too. Okay, Mormons. The majority of the Mormons there are those rare Democrats, but the majority of them are Republicans.
Oh, I called them, but you know what it is?
I don't look at myself as someone that's economically troubled, no way. But I am worried about my kids.
We have paid for doctor bills. We've paid for dental bills.
2 of my children right now do not have health insurance. Our kids without health care was a big turning point for us. That really got my attention. I am a power plant operator where I work the geysers. It's a renewable energy source. Calpine is a good company. They are.
So then why are they cutting back on people and cutting sick leave?
Well, the operation will be more profitable if they cut back on personnel. That's a given. I've always been pro-union from a philosophical standpoint. I consider myself part of the labor force. Therefore, I think labor needs a say. The company brought in anti-union consultants and put on a good campaign to counter the union.
Let me just say, I came here, some of you are still on the fence, some people walked out, there is tension in the air. The underlying reality is that if workers don't have power, if they don't have a voice, inevitably their wages and benefits start eroding. It happens inevitably.
Personally, I'm a proud Christian. I'm a proud Calpine employee. I think they treat me more fair than I should be treated.
If you have a company that is dependent on shareholders, there is growing and growing pressure on that company to show better and better profits and have higher and higher share prices. That's just the way capitalism is. That's not bad. But what that means, inevitably, is that there's greater and greater pressure to push wages and benefits down to the minimum.
So you're a capitalist. I'm a capitalist. I say for these people making their millions, that's fantastic. I could have done the same thing if I went to school and had the brains for it. I do not. So I'm a laborer. And there's such a burden on the companies in the United States now that the cost of business drives them to go elsewhere.
But this, right now, is the richest country in the world, and we are richer than we've ever been. Believe me, we as a nation are doing great, and certain people in this country are doing better than anybody's ever done in the world, in world history.
It's not just Calpine. I took a $12 an hour cut in pay, okay? My benefits are going down.
And do twice the duties. I'll be running 2 plants instead of 1.
If you have $10 million, if you have $1 billion, why do you need that little bit that I have?
okay?
Big companies are designed not to generate good jobs in the United States. Big companies are designed to make profits.